A new report from the New York Times reveals details about Donald Trump's pardon of a man convicted of tax fraud just 1 month after his mother attended a major fundraiser for the president. Former nursing home executive Paul Walzak pleaded guilty to tax crime days after the 2024 election and was ordered to pay more than $4 million in restitution and serve 18 months in prison. The Times reports a pardon application submitted around the time of Trump's inauguration cited Walzak's mother and her support for Trump, claiming her political activity motivated the prosecution against him. Trump eventually granted that pardon. It comes as the president announced just yesterday he will fully pardon reality TV stars Todd and Julie Chrisley. The couple was found guilty in 2022 of multiple counts of financial fraud and tax evasion.
I mean, built banks, the courts found of over $30 million through the years. Not even a close call, according to the courts.
The Chrisley's attorney told the White House they were targeted because of their conservative views.
Jonathan Lemire, this keeps happening, doesn't it? Donald Trump is using his pardon power in a way that no other president's used it before, and he's using it indiscriminately.
Yeah, we usually see presidents issue pardons at the very end of their terms, and certainly President Trump did that as well. A number of his predecessors, Republicans, Democrats alike, did the same. But we're now seeing it happen from day one. Let's remember that it was on the night of January 20th, Inauguration Day, is when Trump pardoned the January 6th convicts, going much further than his staff had advocated. I had reporting at the time that there was most in the senior staff wanted pretty limited measures. And there was a lot of arguments back and forth in the weeks and then days before the Inauguration Day. And it was only about 24 hours before Trump took the oath of office again where he made the decision, everybody, just do them all. And now we're seeing here, again, he feels like whether it's a conservative cause or a supporter of his or someone he can paint as a victim of the weaponization of government, put that in quotes, from the Biden administration. He has shown, Willie, that he is not going to be reluctant. He's going to be very aggressive using the pardons. We've seen some blowback. We've seen some of those January 6th pardons. Some of those people have been rearrested for other terrible crimes. Some of the pardons have even gained some skepticism from fellow Republicans, but Trump has made no secret that he's going to keep using it.
And the people who got these pardons know what world leaders know, what Vladimir Putin knows. Flattery gets you everywhere.
Flattery and money.
We love Donald Trump. We'll donate to your cause. Get us out of jail, and it works. Let's bring in New York Times reporter Kenneth Vogel. He's the author behind the Times piece on that pardon of Paul Walzak. Ken, good to see you this morning. So if you could, just a little bit, I think people probably aren't familiar with who he is and what he did. He was headed for prison shortly before this came down. What more can you tell us about his case and how the pardon came?
Yeah, he was set to be sentenced he was actually already sentenced. I'm sorry. He was sentenced just 12 days before the pardon came down, and he was sentenced to 18 months in prison and to pay this $4.4 million in restitution. And we should stress here, he had pleaded guilty. This wasn't like a contested thing. He had pleaded guilty to 2 counts of taking tax, basically payroll tax fraud. He had taken the taxes, the federal withholding taxes out of the paychecks of his employees at these nursing homes, and then $10 million worth. And then instead of giving them to the IRS to be used for their Social Security, Medicare, etc. Later, he spent at least part of that money on his own enrichment. He bought a $2 million yacht. He made purchases at Cartier, Bergdorf Goodman, Saks, did a bunch of traveling, and he was aware of this and worked with the IRS for a number of years before he was criminally charged, and then ultimately pleaded guilty. It's important to note the timing here. He pleaded guilty 10 days after President Trump was elected in 2024. So his family, which had deep ties to the Trump and had raised a bunch of money to the Trump family and raised a bunch of money for Donald Trump, had reason to believe, hey, this is potentially a good time for us to plead guilty because we have someone coming into the White House with access to this pardon power who's going to look at our case sympathetically.
And we're looking, as you're talking, Ken, photographs of him posting to social media with the hat on. He's riding a bicycle with a Trump flag, doing all the things, sending all the signals he needed to get the pardon. But let's talk about his mother's role in this, who she is, the dinner she attended last month that perhaps led to this pardon.
Yeah, she'd been a stalwart fundraiser in South Florida for Republican campaigns and party committees going back to the George W. Bush administration. But it's notable that her strength was really as a fundraiser, that is bringing in checks from other people, including at fundraisers that she hosted at this lavish home that she had in Jupiter, Florida. So she didn't have a record of giving huge checks, and it's interesting that she was invited as she was waiting, as her family was awaiting this word on this pardon. She was invited to a $1 million a head candlelight dinner fundraiser with President Trump at Mar-a-Lago. There's really not a lot in her Federal Election Commission record that would suggest that she had the ability to stroke this kind of check, but it was certainly during a period when she and her son and her family wanted something from President Trump, and it's hard to ignore that timing that she receives this invitation to a $1 million fundraiser while they're awaiting the pardon, and while the son is facing the prospect of 18 months in prison and $4.4 million in restitution.
Gosh. All right. New York Times reporter Kenneth Vogel, thank you very much for your reporting. Thanks for coming on this morning.